Call the meeting of the Hannaford Regional Technical School District Board to order at 5 o'clock. I'd like to start with introduction of board meeting.
Lorraine Morris, representing Addison Central School District.
Good afternoon, Mark Parent, representing the investment board.
Hannaford Career Center Adult Education and Office of Education Coordinator.
Gibson Smith, Business Manager.
Linda Barrett, Clerk.
Dana Peterson, Superintendent, Director.
Suzanne Buck, representing ACSD.
Christina Macklin, representing ANWSD.
Missy Beckwith, representing Workforce Investment Board.
Kim Farnham, Community at Large member from Mount Airy School District.
Nick Colson, representing ACSD.
Mike.
Michael McGrath, Addison Northwest.
Would the community like to introduce themselves? No?
Jake Burnham, Engineering, Architecture, and Computer Science teacher with 4 student presenters this evening.
Would you like to introduce them and we'll go around to everyone down there?
Sure. Gage Lelumiere is Engineering 2. Isla Yobi is Computer Science 2. Jake Perkins is Computer Science 2. And Bullock is Computer Science 2.
Great. And then would the rest of the audience like to introduce themselves, please?
Richard Bailey.
Woody Danforth, Culinary Arts.
Cheryl Warner, Magna Carta.
Elisa Rittendale, Program Assistant.
Brenda Logie, Guidance.
Hi, Eric St. John, Addison Repertory Theater Company instructor.
Joe Shine, Visual Communications Instructor.
Denise Emzak, Registrar. Barbara Thompson, Snow Medical Professions Instructor.
Welcome. We're glad to see all of you here, and it's great to have such a great crowd. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Are there,
Didn't we have to add?
do we have to add? So that was my,
Yeah, sorry, my apologies, I was asleep
it
at
was,
the wheel.
so it was moved and seconded, so now I'm going to ask if there's any
Discussion,
discussion.
that's right. So
So
there are a couple of things. One is an executive session, if we could possibly add that for student records.
So we will add that after.
What was that for, David?
Student records. And then there was a proposal that came for the, under action discussion for applying for a permit. Building permit. I'll explain later.
Yep. So there's 2 corrections under action agenda, applying for a building permit, which will be taken up after the 5:55 time slot for the community engagement work plan, and executive session for student records after the 6:40 executive session for negotiations. Are there any other pieces? What?
Could the student records possibly come before the negotiations?
Sure.
Is that okay with the board? Sure. We'll move, we'll switch those. So we will do executive session for student records first, and then executive session for negotiations last. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so motion's been moved
And second.
and seconded. We've made corrections to the agenda. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the corrections as noted?
As amended, yeah.
As amended? Yes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded. We've added those 2 pieces to our agenda. Do we have any comments from the visitors?
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Werner.
Cheryl Werner. And we have noticed that Bill Lawson is retiring this year, and that there is a search committee set up already for that position. And the faculty and staff, knowing that our director position was a 2-year interim position and that it ends in 2020, we would like to know what the plans are on the board's part for the future leadership of the Hannaford Career Center.
So typically during public comment session, if we don't interact with, we take your comments and your questions and then we'll get back to you. So that, if that is okay, we will.
Just out of curiosity, since I don't know, how does that happen?
So it would be, it could be through an email or a phone call. We'll let you know. Okay? Thank you. Are there any other comments or? Okay. Correspondence? Dana?
I received an unsigned letter from the other day, yesterday, that was just complimentary towards one of our staff, but in consulting, we don't usually distribute unsigned letters, so I'm just letting the board know that
It was received?
it was received. So,
Is that all we have for correspondence?
that's all I have for correspondence, that's correct.
Okay. So moving on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes of September 11th. If there are no issues with those, we'll move on to monthly accounts. Missy?
Ready?
You want to take it up?
So minutes need to come out.
Okay.
Oh, okay, sorry Missy, I've been just notified that the minutes need to come out of the consent agenda. There appears to be an issue with them. So we will take them up under action. Okay, now you may go.
Thank you. So expenditures, October 9th, which is today. Building and equipment reserve, $14,009.09. General fund, $221,024.54. Revolving fund, $5,050.47. No expenditures for the McClure grant. Makery grant, $255.89. Payroll for September 13th, 2019, $96,219.62. Payroll for September 27th, 2019, $86,419.51.
Thank you. That brings us to Mr. Burnham and your students. And I'm going to move so that I'm not sitting in the middle of it.
So, thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. You recall in September we were at North Campus. We got to hear from Auto and Diesel and see some student work there. Tonight we get to hear from some level 2 students from engineering, architecture, and computer science. Before we do that, I wanted to refresh you on what the course content is for these two courses. While I talk about this, we can think about them a little bit through the lens of IB career-related program, because these would be two career-related studies. The engineering architecture program is newly endorsed through Project Lead the Way, where successful completing students may earn RIT credit if they pass the final third-party exam, which is pretty great. The bullets on the left you see represent some of our core course units for that program. Computer science, excuse me, on the right. Successful students here may earn AP credit if they pass the AP exam in the spring, and that opens all kinds of doors for bypassing entry-level college CS-related courses that honor AP scores as course replacements, which is pretty great. Those two third-party endorsements are really what make these two strands CRS ready for the IBCP. These are all level 1 examples of content course curriculum. Level 2 students, who you'll hear from tonight, have experienced this. They have found something unique within this that speaks to them and they want to learn more about, and so they come back as level 2 students in their 12th grade year. That 12th grade year looks a lot like an independent study, where they're diving deeper into one of these areas, and ideally that's an area that they want to pursue further after high school, either in post-secondary training, business, personal interest, etc. So you get to hear a little bit more about that. Our first presenter is Gage Lulumier. Gage is a 12th grader from Virgins. Oops, there's no questions yet. If we do have questions, if we could save them for the end so that we can be respectful of our time with all the presenters. Okay, we'll try it this way. Great. Thank you, Gage.
Right. Hello, my name is Gage Lumiere, and I am currently enrolled in the Engineering 2 course here at the Hannaford Career Center. Why I'm taking the course and why I decided to enroll mainly was because of level 1 that I took last year in the fall. I really liked the hands-on learning aspect that Jake incorporated into a lot of his teaching, and also taking CAD classes at my high school. I really knew that I had a passion for not only 3D software, but for manufacturing and engineering. And I'm also taking this course for future purposes like college, and in the end of the course I'll have a tangible product that I'll be able to present in front of a college and show them that I have made something on my own independently and solved the problem. So my design that I'm doing, I started by thinking of problems that I face or that other people face in society, and one thing I really focused on was music. I've been playing the drums for quite a few years now, and recently through the summer I just found that a lot of my beats were sounding the same, and there just wasn't a lot of variation in what I was playing. And so I thought of ways that I could change it up, and I started experimenting with tempos, and I started thinking of ways to experience different tempos, specifically with the bass drum. And so I knew there was one way to get faster speeds, and that was through a double bass drum. And instead of just one foot pedal, it would be 2 foot pedals, which would mean I could play it twice as fast. So I went online, did some research, and was instantly struck with how expensive these were, and knew that for what the equipment was, I could make something way cheaper and just as viable. So my solution that I'm making is the double bass drum attachment. And this is not only different from normal bass drum pedals, but a lot more cost efficient because of this little orange piece right there. Normal double bass drum pedals, the 2 cams and beaters here are fixed together and you can't take them apart. But this bearing clamp, I call it, can detach from a single bass drum pedal, and you can put it on the other side. You can put it anywhere you want, so it's completely customizable and still totally viable and much more cost efficient. My plan on completing this design is to work with Mr. Atwood, who is another teacher here at the Career Center in the shop department, and he has agreed to work with me on how to learn how to use a CNC machine so I can make that orange part and a couple of other parts in metal so that they would be able to sustain faster, vigorous playing and not break down over time. And I also plan on working with Mr. Burnham, and he's letting me use his 3D printers for prototyping, other parts that I might need, and just his general knowledge to keep me on task and just to make sure if I need help, then he can help me. And I plan on doing the final designing and assembling during and outside of class whenever needed.
Thank you. Our second presenter is Isaiah Bullock. Isaiah is a 12th grader from MUHS.
So my name is Isaiah Bullock. I'm partaking in the level 2 of the computer science class. My goal is to make an operating system for a computer. I want to do this because it's a very basic level of the computer system, but it's hard to do, so it'll give me a challenge and a way to further my goal in programming later in life. So this builds upon my level 1 because I learned how to read and learn code in that class and also the design process. So I'm going to use these to create an operating system using a high-level code and a low-level code. A low-level code basically talks to the hardware itself, while high-level code talks to other code. So my process is I'm gonna learn x86 and C using textbooks that I have. I'm gonna use these to create a bootloader that allows the kernel to boot. And the kernel itself is basically the operating system in its whole. And after I create those, I'm going to create applications preloaded onto them. So like file management and other things. I want to get the languages learned by the end of December. And I want to get the bootloader and kernel made by mid-March. That's where the prototype's going to be done. And I'm hoping to polish it out by the end of April. I want to include a GUI, security, a UI, file management, and applications in my OS.
Thank you, Isaiah. Next up, we have Jacob Perkins, a 12th grader from MUHS, with his adaptation of robotics.
So I'm Jacob Corkins, and this is going to be my robotics project. In level 2 of computer science, we have to do these long projects that are going to take up the majority of the school year. So what I want to do is modify a Furby and give it legs, and I want to make it sing better. So this is a Furby torn down. There were a couple things I didn't understand about it, which was the codec audio, which that's actually how the Furby knows how to respond to certain sounds. So like say you say hello to it, it can say hi back because of the codec audio. And the H bridge, it's circuits that allow the DC motor to move. And this is the Freescale Kinetis, which is the motherboard of the Furby. So what I want is, I want to take a Roboraptor apart, which is a dinosaur robot. I want to take the legs from that, because it has 4 toes on each foot, which is pretty good for stability, which could support the Furby. And it has an ankle joint to help it walk easier. I want to do this because it'll help me understand robotics better. I want to get a better feeling for robotics. It gives me experience creating robot hybrids. It could encourage people to try new things, and shows people that it's fun to use science and engineering, and it can inspire people to change the world with their new ideas. So for my prototype, I want to attach the mechanical legs and improve the singing. And I also want to hook up a second motor to make the legs move better. And in order to improve the singing, I need to take out the SD card for it and put it in a computer and download files onto the SD card. And in level 1 of computer science and programming, we learned how to make apps, which gave me the skills for programming.
Thank you, Dick. And lastly, we have Eily Obi, a 12th grader from WHS.
I'm Eily. My project is called The Maple Weir. So, I didn't know that this was the next slide. Okay, well there's supposed to be another slide in between there. So the slide is supposed to say what it is. So the Maple Weir is a pre-existing project that's 4 years in the making.
There it is. We got it.
It's had previous iterations, many of them are just like design and use based. I want to work on the software of having it read out with measured values and making it more user friendly. What it does, it measures sap flow, does not predict values, it measures them in real time.
Do you want the people again? Or no?
Yes. Good. So, you mentioned it's a project that's 4 years in the making. It is currently in a provisional patent stage. So my engineering predecessors are Will LaRock, who's currently at RIT as an undecided engineer, Finn Clements at Drexel Electrical Engineer, and then my natural resource partner, which is Sam Klingensmith. So my goals. The goal is to have 10 of them made by January so that they can be used. Have 10 readout screens. The goal is to have less than that so that we can have multiple reading out to one screen. Data readout, collected data and recorded stored data, have code worked out. So this builds on all of my experiences at the Career Center. I have taken 3 classes previous to the one I'm in. Last year I took level 1 of computer science, and I took STEM my sophomore and freshman year of high school. I have backgrounds in coding and manufacturing things in Mr. Atwood's industrial design class. So I'm looking forward to using those skills again.
We'll hear more about Eiley later in Dana's superintendent's report. And you didn't see any pictures of the maple weir because if we showed you it, we'd all have to stay in this room for the next 18 to 36 months. So, yeah, we have filed a provisional patent application, and we have until June to fine-tune that product and submit the formal utility patent application, which is pretty cool. To the best of our knowledge, no career center in the state, or even Jenna High School in the state, possesses a patent. We talked about this last spring, et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you for those presentations. Are there any questions from you all?
Well, before the board gets started with their questions, I would just like to congratulate the 4 of you. It takes a lot to prepare a presentation, but it takes even more to stand up in front of a group of people with a community TV focused on you and do such an excellent job. So I would really like to say thank you. Kudos to all of you. Great job.
Thank you.
Especially this unruly crew.
Does anybody have any questions for them? Any?
I do. On the drum thing you make, you said you could use that and you'd be able to use that independently, so you could use it as a single or double, or just move it to the other side?
It's more like it attaches to a single pedal, so you could either have one single pedal or the double attachment. It wouldn't be able to just play on its own.
All right, cool. That's great.
Lorraine?
I've got to ask us, my sister was given a Furby a few years ago, and it was so annoying. Well, I mean, I didn't know how to trade it. I mean, it just was so annoying. You shut it in a closet so it wouldn't. So what on earth was that choose that particular item?
I was thinking something about robotics for the project, and I was thinking of robots that I thought weren't boring, and I wanted one that was kind of annoying. So I chose a Furby, and I wanted to, reprogram it so maybe it wouldn't be as annoying.
And you were like, this thing, they're so annoying.
So you're volunteering to let it stay at your house to see how it works?
I actually, it was
I've never owned a Furby, so I didn't realize they were annoying.
very annoying.
what's, for each of you, what is the most exciting aspect of your proposal for you personally in terms of getting involved? What excites you most?
The thing that excites me most is not only like self-management, but like learning that new skill with a different teacher that I've never worked before and kind of like driving that myself. That's pretty exciting because I like to learn new things. I've already had like a passion for CAD and stuff like that, and so to be able to use different software and different machinery is pretty cool.
I'm excited to apply computer science to other fields besides computer science.
I just wanted to make something interesting and unique. I thought it was pretty fun.
And improving what?
Lorraine describes as the most annoying thing on the planet.
It's gonna sing there.
I'm just mainly excited to learn 2 new software languages.
Great. Any other questions or?
What are your future plans? You're applying any specific college or whatever?
ETC.
Thank you.
I'm applying to a number of colleges, 2 of which I mentioned during my presentation because 2 of Mr. Brenham's students are already there.
I'm still currently thinking about college.
And that's perfectly fine.
I'm thinking about just a computer science college. I'm not super sure where yet, but
thank you.
Great, thank you all. Yeah. Good luck. If there's no others, thank you again. Great job.
Pretty good. I should be cleared soon.
Kelly's name?
Should be here.
Okay.
And if she's not, she has 4 dates. She has
Oh, okay.
6 and 7.
That was fun. It was fun. I really enjoy the presentations every time. It really helps connect with
Yes, all right. Yeah.
She said she'd mention it.
Okay.
She'll be here. She had to.
So, can we take up the minutes? There was a correction that needed to be done to those, which I'm not sure what the correction was, so.
It's on page 3 of the, well, actually, what page is it? It's on the 3rd page. So it's page 3 of the minutes. And I'll ask the facilities committee to help me out with this, but it's up at the very top. And there was a motion to authorize the facilities committee to expend $65,813 for the security project expenses. I don't think that was right. I think that the motion was to empower or to authorize the facilities committee to expend the fund balance on necessary projects, and there was another motion for 8,000 someplace. Was that correct?
It's down under facilities, the energy contract is the last
Yes,
paragraph.
that was right. So it somehow got blended. That is our balance, and generally, once a year, we ask the board to authorize the facilities committee to approve expenses that go beyond my 5,000. Anything that goes above 15,000, the board actually has to take action on itself. So it's to cover that range in there. So I think it was meant to authorize the facilities committee to expend the funds in the BRF for necessary projects. I think it was just the wording. I don't think it was for the whole amount, and it wasn't all for security expenses.
That's correct.
So how should that?
Be reworded.
I mean, there was a motion, I just think somehow it got,
I don't remember.
Okay.
We say expend fund balance of 65,813 for necessary projects.
Yes, I think that would be fine. I think that that was the intent.
So what was that again?
Or approved necessary projects.
Great.
To
So to
expend-
authorize the facilities committee to expend the fund balance of 65,013 for
Expenses? And leave
for
out,
approved, for approved expenses? No. What did you say?
Expenditures, maybe?
For
He
approved,
said approved necessary projects.
right, for approved necessary project.
Approve necessary what?
projects. So is that, so if we go down to the $8,000, which you asked about, is that $8,000 included in the
Yes.
65,000?
Correct. In other words, when when the motion was taken for the approval of the RFQ, RFP, if for some reason we did not award, if we do not award the contract, and somebody has put a proposal, not a proposal, but the work,
Has done the
has
energy audit.
has done the energy audit, then we could have an $8,000 expense based on the RFQ, RFP. And the facilities committee wanted to be transparent about that being a cost that we would have to go to the BRF for. So that was appropriately moved, I believe.
But that 8,000 is a part of that 65.
That 8,000 is a part of it. That is an approved cost should it happen. The likelihood that it would happen is pretty small.
Does that make sense to everyone? I wasn't here, sorry, I was in South Dakota with a brand new grandchild, so I'll take you all on your word.
But the 8,000 is included in the 65.
Okay.
Oh, there's one other typo.
Nope.
VSBIT, under Facilities Energy Contract, RFP, been reviewed and approved by VSBIT.
What?
VIS.
VSBIT, it's the Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust.
Oh.
Visbit.
Visbit. Yes,
VS,
Visbit.
letters VSBIT. Yep. That was just a typo.
Okay. Are there any other, Lorraine?
I just noticed, I mean, normally like on our minutes or things, we have where the meeting is, and until the very end, one of my captains had talked about the governance town, saying it was so nice to see people at the North Campus. There's nothing here that indicate we met at the North Campus, so I just thought maybe at the, somewhere at the top, it should say.
Oh, actually,
Unless I missed it, I didn't see anything that indicated we were at North Campus.
It's on the agenda, but it's not ever been on the minutes.
It's not on the minutes, but like on other minutes, we have like the budget and policy, it says main office, or, you know, other places, facilities, main office, but there's nothing here to indicate where we were, so just go at the top. Maybe we should look into
I didn't know it was
that.
at the North Campus until the last second. I had to reread the agenda and I said, does that say North Campus?
Well, right, that's right.
And then I saw Kim's thing about somebody was going to North Campus still. And I was like, So after that,
So you'll put it
I said,
North
okay, it must be at North Campus.
Yeah, so we will add that meeting was held at North Campus. Okay. Any other corrections, omissions? I'll entertain a motion then to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as amended of September 11th, 2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That would be me, because I wasn't here. So, all right, on to policy 2.3, financial condition and activities.
oh, no,
You,
is that me?
Dana, I think.
Let me go to
Sorry.
That's quite all right, I'm okay. So Gibson prepares a report each quarter on financial activities, and under our policy governance, I am expected to make sure that there are certain parameters that are met, and those are listed in your report. So we're not going to expend more funds than we received unless it follows that guidelines below. And Gibson has reported that we've expended $674,906, 19% approximately of the budget. And he also reported that there was an anticipated surplus of unrestricted funds of somewhere between $25,000 and $75,000. There is no a debt that can't be repaid. He also gives the figures of what the fund balance was on September 30th of $106,271, and that we had a current balance at that point in time of $200,000 drawn on the line of credit. That we're not going to use any long-term reserves other than those that are mentioned in the BERF. And as of September 30th, the balance in the BERF was $57,723. That reflects an $8,000 change from the 65 that was reported at the last board meeting as a result of the coverage for the in anticipation of reimbursements from the grant fund for the safety grant that we received. There have been no interfund transfers, and payroll and related debts have been paid in a timely manner. And when looking at tax payments and tax liabilities, the largest one is for federal and state tax withholdings, which happen by electronic transfer each payroll. And number 7 being the restrictions on use of the BERF. The superintendent has a limit of $5,000. Anything above that limit must be approved by the board or the facilities committee, and there was one check for $8,639, which is 50% of our grant amount of $17,279 for the purchase of the blue light security system, which has been installed, and that was approved by the facilities committee. We did not acquire nor dispose of any real property, and we do not have any outstanding receivables.
Are there any comments and questions? I heard some muttering over to my left, so I'm just, anything?
No, that was
Okay.
minutes.
Can I?
Nick has.
Whoops, Nick, sorry.
So, in number 2, is the cash, the general fund balance is 106,000. And do we have 200,000 drawn on the line of credit? Or is that available on the line of credit?
He had, go ahead, Gibson.
Well, so that 200,000 is drawn on the line of credit. The line of credit is approximately $1 million. So that would be 800,000 available.
Available. Okay. So we have 106,000 of that in the bank, of what we've drawn.
That is to cover, any payables that are
short-term payables.
That are in process.
Yeah.
To cover any checks.
Gibson tries to draw the line of credit sparingly so that we don't incur additional interest costs. So effectively, we had $300,000 in the bank at that time, correct, Gibson? Correct. 200 plus 106.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or? Hearing none, we'll proceed to, I need a motion to approve policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed. Policy 2.5, emergency superintendent succession.
So once again, you have this in your report. I'll just highlight a couple of the essential things. We have 2 licensed administrators working with me, both Len and Kelly, who could assume oversight of the legal and fiscal management of the school system in the absence of the superintendent. And the basic plan would be that if the need were to arise in the event of an emergency, the primary responsibilities would fall to Kelly. Kelly has some part-time teaching responsibilities. We would cover those part-time teaching responsibilities, and then she could step in temporarily to cover the responsibilities of the superintendent.
Are there any questions?
And we meet weekly to discuss things that relate to the entire center, whether it's budget for policies, student needs, or operations.
Any questions? No? I'll take a motion to approve policy 2.5, please. Been moved and seconded to approve policy 2.5, emergency superintendent succession. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Proxy or certificate of authority designation by the board.
That's for the upcoming annual meeting of the Vermont School Boards Association. And each year, there are proxy votes on a variety of measures. I think I sent you a link to help you familiarize yourselves with the proposals that were coming out for that. And you can either appoint a designee or, well, I would appoint a designee from either the board or the superintendent to vote those proxy votes and provide instructions. There are recommended instructions from the VSBA in terms of the way they would suggest that you vote. You would just need to name your designee and for the minutes, and then instruct them that person how to vote. So we've done this each of the last 2 years that I've been here. And
that meeting is at Lake Maury
on the 7th, and actually the meeting is on the morning of the 8th.
Morning of the 8th from like 8 to 8:30.
Yep.
So it's a very short meeting. I am not going to be able.
I will be there.
To go. So we can either appoint Dana to be our person to vote.
Authorized representative, yeah.
Or if any of you would like to go, we can throw it out to you. What is your pleasure? Ms. Lorraine?
I move that we appoint Dana to be our designee for voting purposes.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Dana as our legal voting authorized designation by the board. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed.
The only clarification that I would ask is, would your instructions be for me to follow the recommended slate? So,
tell him.
right, well, I'm your designee. I think the second vote should be.
Second vote would be.
How to vote.
How do you want him to vote?
Yep.
Did you all get a chance to look at the link? So how would you like to have Dana vote?
I'd say we ask Dana to vote along with the recommendation from the VSBA board, their recommendations.
Follow recommendations of the VSBA? Is that a motion?
It is.
It is a motion. So is motion that we authorize Dana to vote along the recommendations of the VSBA? Is there a second? Lorraine? Is there any discussion?
Is there any time that we would not be in agreement with the VSBA?
You would have to read the resolutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read most of them, and there's I've never found, I've attended those meetings for a lot of years, and there's been a few times where VSBA has recommended something and there's been a lot of discussion at the meeting. And we have, I'm going to say, that's meetings in October, end of the month.
It's actually
It's the first week of,
So we won't have another meeting if somebody happens to look at it, if we vote this in. There's nothing burning.
no, it's
Pretty,
redrawing some lines and.
That, they did say it's a
And there's,
regional meeting might be an issue for some people, but it doesn't affect us, so we don't care.
right. And I would, having attended the, as you did, as well as Suzanne, I don't know if there's anybody else here who's attended one of the regional meetings, there is nothing in those proposals that would
Nothing's going to hurt us.
Right, and
Or
so,
affect us.
some of them, some proposals have come from certain districts or members that have a particular, that they have a particular interest in. VSBA has said that those things are already covered in other resolutions that already exist, and so the need to actually vote on a redundant resolution is not necessary. So I would be comfortable following the VSBA guidelines, having looked at them myself. But if there's a concern, you could certainly, I suppose, call a special meeting and do it via electronic between now and the 8th, and change your mind and tell me what not to follow.
Yeah.
But I don't see that as being something that would be relevant to our situation currently.
Yeah, I mean, they spoke about at the VSBA meeting that we had at the high school 2 weeks ago, a week ago.
2 weeks
And it
ago.
was really more about redrawing boundary lines and kind of trying to level out some of the student population numbers. But it was all pretty, other than the redistricting thing, it's not going to affect us. We're staying where we are, where we've been. So they thought some people might have an issue with drawing a boundary line.
just clarifying, so this is asking you to be our designee as well for the VHI as well? Or
No, that's being pulled because of Act 11.
Okay. So I think the resolution meeting is the night before, not in the morning.
They sent out 2 postcards and they had both of them at the same time.
Are they in the morning now?
I think so, yes. It's been significantly reduced as a result of the change in how the healthcare is being run.
I thought I had the postcard with me, but I guess.
No, that's
nope.
okay.
Visbit's annual meeting, November 8th, 8 to 8:30.
Yep.
Now, unless they've changed it since they mailed this out September 25th.
No, I didn't go last year and I didn't get a postcard, but I'm just saying historically it was usually after the first day at night in the auditorium.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I think that they've moved to the morning for the last couple. Because last year, I'm sure, and this year as well, it's in the morning, so.
it was moved and seconded.
Yep.
To have Dana vote according to the VSBA's recommendations, thank you. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, if if somebody rereads them and finds something really burning that they don't like, please reach out and we can call a special meeting via computers or something. One of us would have to sit here, but that's okay. Authorization for community engagement, community work plan. Are you going to present?
Yes, I'm going to present a motion to the board related to the upcoming work that the Vision Engagement Work Plan. So the committee met last week, but we didn't have a quorum, so we just continued, with some of our conversation. Anyway, the motion is to ask all of you to authorize the Community Engagement Committee to move forward with developing the necessary materials related to the Vision Engagement Work Plan development and implementation. So I know you guys all were sent a copy of the work plan at some point.
Yeah, before the last meeting.
There's extra copies here, but anyway, that's the motion.
I want to send some that way. Would you like one to?
It's basically, you know, we all agreed to hire Sue and put together a steering committee. So it's authorizing that committee, Community Engagement Committee to...
Oh.
I'll second that motion.
Great.
Okay. Lorraine, if there's some extras, would you mind shooting them this way?
I don't need much. I don't know.
Yes, there are some extras.
Thank you. So the motion has been moved and seconded
Yep.
to allow or to give permission to the engagement committee to move forward with developing materials. Is there any discussion, Missy?
I have a question.
Yes.
So we voted to allow the community engagement for Sue's proposal. Does the committee have to ask to move forward with each step within that?
So this is kind of giving them blessings to...
So you don't have to do that.
So they can develop materials and not have to keep coming back and saying, we want to do this, can we have your blessing, we want to do this. So this is like an overall blessing for the materials that they're going to design. And I'm sure the committee will share them as they move along, but that you won't have to continually approve materials.
Okay. I guess my question is much broader than that.
Okay.
It seems like we voted to move forward with a proposal, and in that was outlined all of the work for the committee. And it seems like, obviously, there's an expectation that the committee keep the board apprised, but it seems like we would want to authorize the committee to move forward with the work as it's outlined, so they're not being held up waiting for a board meeting and approval every time they want to move forward. So I would recommend adjusting the motion.
To, what would you suggest that it change to? If you're recommending a change to the motion.
I think the outline that was presented by Sue McCormick was inclusive from start to finish. And I would make a motion to have the committee follow through and execute the work that's fully inclusive from start to finish.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Mark, did you want to withdraw your
I'll go with whatever the will of the
motion?
the person who made the motion is.
I'm happy to do whatever, that's fine too.
I
That
agree with
broadens
what
it. I mean, I
Missy's
just,
saying.
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I think it means that we were trying to accomplish the same thing. It's just worded different, right? Yeah.
So maybe the motion says to authorize the Community Engagement Committee to execute the work plan.
Yes.
Is that simple enough?
So do I need to withdraw my motion? Help me out here. No?
No, if you take it as a friendly amendment.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I agree.
Thank
Mark
you.
agrees. Okay, so we... Oh, you're going to say it. Okay.
A motion to authorize the executive committee.
Oh, it's okay.
The executive committee.
I'm sorry. I'm not reading my own notes. It skipped over to something else. Motion to authorize the Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you.
To execute, the work plan.
Great.
For Mission and Vision.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay. So that motion has been moved and seconded, as Dana just read it out loud.
Thank you.
Is there any conversation or discussion? Lorraine or Mark? Okay. we'll proceed to vote on that motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion's passed. About all I know about this is Dana called me this morning and asked if we could put this applying for a building permit on the agenda. And
I'll explain.
I gave him 2 minutes.
I can do this in 30 seconds, I think. Last year, or I think it was last year, around this time, there was a presentation at school, and some board members had attended. I don't know if anyone on the board now was in attendance, but you may have been. And it was the students in natural resource management and engineering were designing a pole barn for storage out here. I think they were originally looking at possibly doing it here at main campus. They decided for a variety of reasons that wouldn't really work, so they wanted to move something, to do it out at North Campus. They brought the idea about moving forward with this a while ago, and I said, well, we need to make sure that all of your programs are going through all of the permitting process to make sure that we're not authorizing something that we can't. So they just got the information for a permit, a building permit from the town of Middlebury, and they thought that I could sign it, and I said, no, I can't. I am not the owner of the facility, and I'm not the agent of the owner unless so designated. So the question is, could we apply for a building permit for putting up a pole barn at North Campus with the contingency that it would pass all of the permitting requirements. They have done some homework and talked to the town in terms of zoning, and it meets those requirements, and they would approve that. However, if we're going to apply for a permit, it has to be a vote of the ownership, which is the board, and then the designee, which would probably be the chair, would have to sign that permit, not me, unless you chose differently.
Mark?
I was going to go back to facilities. Does facility know anything at all about this committee? Facilities committee?
About the pole barn?
It hasn't been brought up recently.
I was going to say, I don't remember
I don't recall
either.
it.
Doesn't mean anything, just means I don't remember.
I don't recall.
We have not, I don't think we've had much official discussion about this in quite some time.
Is there a time-sensitive need to this? Because we have a process with a lot of the facility stuff that goes through the committee, so it has a proper vetting. And, it's probably more appropriate there than it is here. And I would say send it to the next facility committee meeting and go from there.
Whatever the pleasure of the board. I did acknowledge that it was a very tight time frame when the request came up to me yesterday. I said I couldn't sign it, it would have to go to the board, and that there might be some questions, even if we got it onto the agenda, which was not guaranteed, that there might be some discussion that might be postponed.
And your question is one that I brought up, as well as
I asked
how it will affect the budget. Is there funds already, laid out for this?
Well, this is just a permit. What's the cost of the permit?
$40.
$40. And it's just for the permit right now?
That's what the request was for.
But that then brings about other expenses later on that we may or may not have in time for budget season.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, has anybody, we approved the pole barn, or does that not need approval by us because it's under the limit?
I think that's why this should be going to committee.
Because I have questions.
These are all good questions.
Yeah.
Kim's got a question, and I'm sure that's probably a good question.
Ms. Kim, are you just waving the air, or do you have a question?
I think you're supposed to put your hand up and not just speak. That's the word.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a point of order on that. I agree with you.
So noted.
There's a process that goes along with this. There's also a waiting period after the permit's paid for and presented to the town. So I'm confused about the timeliness thing, like, you know, is this something that has to be done tomorrow? No, you know, and again, there's a process, and I think it needs to go to that particular committee. Yeah, thank you for bringing it.
Yeah.
So
Missy.
I'll raise my hand first.
Well, it was sort of up there.
So could the committee authorize or could the board authorize the facilities committee to sign the permit or to bring it to Suzanne for a signature once we've vetted?
I think the appropriate, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it needs to be approved by the board. So if they come to you guys and you guys feel that it's appropriate, then you bring it to us, and then there's that authorization, because...
Or you could authorize the facilities committee to make a determination, or you could say that you could approve this pending review by the facilities committee. And that way the permit could only be signed after the facilities committee is satisfied with their responses. But that's another option you can exercise.
I don't know, I think Mark has, and I feel Mark has hit it on the head that it needs to
Yeah, I think it should
follow.
go through the normal process of going through the facilities committee.
Miss Lorraine?
They're not planning to build this fall?
No.
Okay, so, yeah, so there's not an immediate rush, correct? Or what?
There would not appear to be. In my subsequent conversations, there are things that students can be doing as project readiness that would not affect the permit. That would not affect the timing of the permit.
So did you just say that they could continue working on whatever, but they don't have to have the
permit to do what they're doing, right?
Okay.
There are things that will not be preempted if the permit were delayed.
Missy, I think, is whose hand I
I'm just gonna
saw.
try and wrap this all up
Yes,
and
please.
say, do we need a motion? What do we need here?
We would need a motion to send it somewhere.
I would make a motion.
No.
I don't think we need to. I don't think we need
Just
to.
no action?
No action.
Okay.
Normal process.
Thank you. I will inform you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I didn't get this done. My apologies.
That's
So
all.
I will apologize. I was supposed to have written a board member job description, and life got busy and I did not get that done. We have approached Aqua WIB, which is our WIB board, to come up with a suggestion for one board member now and a board member for possibly March, April timeframe. They have asked us to write a detailed job description of what a board member needs to do or how much time it involves, and my apologies, I did not get it done. So,
We did want to ask for input, though.
yes. If anybody has any thoughts as to what I should include, please feel free to throw out those ideas, or if you don't want to speak right now, you can email them to me. And before I send the description off to Aqua, I will send it out to all of you.
Time commitment, list of subcommittees that are available to sign up for, maybe a little description about what those are. And however long their term is, I don't know what that is. It's a little bit different for some of us, you know, depending on representation.
I think it's on a cycle now. It wasn't originally, but I think anybody who's on the WIB is on a 3-year cycle.
3-year.
I believe that's correct. I can check the bylaws on that.
But again, that's something probably to make them aware of that.
Yep.
Okay. Missy, you had your hand
I
up?
was going to say it might be helpful to list those items as in addition or with expectations, because it's not an option
Right.
to serve on a committee. It's expected. With an expectation of showing up for meetings, if there's an expectation for attending extracurricular activities.
For instance, like open houses and things like that.
Okay.
completion ceremony, what else would you think along the way that would be helpful for them to understand, you know, what the academic year looks like, because I think sometimes they don't.
Well, I could include like a draft copy of this year's calendar so they could just kind of see what the dates are, if that covers that for people. Mark?
Yeah, the other thing is, and I don't know how to explain this, but some reference to the fact that you become a member of the Vermont School Board Association. What that means. Because there's a certain amount of training that should go along with that.
The ethics and confidentiality piece.
So that would be embedded in that,
Our policies and what the statutory responsibilities are. And does VSBA have a canned description of what it means to be a school board member?
They do.
They
They're
do.
on the resource on their
Yeah.
website, yep.
So that
Yeah.
might be a place to start.
I could hand them an entire manual at this point. So this is great, and again, I am so sorry. I had said I would do this last week, fully intending to do it, and then life just got crazy. So my sincerest apologies. But I will take all this information, I will send you something out. Aqua does not meet again until November.
November, right.
So it will be before, and it'll be before our next board meeting.
And you and I will both be at that next Aqua meeting, right? Presumably, I'm assuming.
Do you remember which day it is?
I think it's Tuesday, the 5th.
Yes,
It's Tuesday.
I will be there. If it's the 5th, I'll there next week.
I think that's off the top of my head, but.
Okay. So, moving on, facilities report.
So the facilities report, I need help with this, Dana, because I don't think I attended this one. But I would like to make a correction to
Sure.
the heading.
heading?
Normally our meetings are on Monday, but I believe this meeting was on a Wednesday.
It was, my apologies, that's a typo.
Okay. And we've had another meeting since this meeting, so,
Right, but we haven't gotten them, actually, I got the minutes out, but they didn't make the packet.
sure. So, in a nutshell, it's covering the BRF allocation for the building audit, which we've talked about already at this meeting.
Right.
Because it was in the board minutes from last month.
Correct.
And then we are working through the RFP process for the energy performance contract.
And we got the response to our RFQ and their binders. Did you get your binder, by the way?
Right there.
So, and you have yours too, okay.
Just a little light reading.
Tomorrow.
Speaking of forward expectations.
We have one day.
I hope you have a lot of coffee, Nick.
What's that?
He's saying that you're a tough taskmistress.
Chili.
Pretty sure feedback's due by Friday.
Missy, anything else?
Not from these minutes, no.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions for facilities? Man, you drive a hard bargain over there.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have that to read for tomorrow.
We should probably mention, just for awareness, that because we have a preschool, the play lab is here. Our lead testing is being done twice for the preschool, and they had to do it before ours. Their timeline and requirements were more stringent than ours. So those have been done. There was one fixture that came up slightly above the limit, and John has replaced that. So that was all taken care of in the prescribed timeline, just for your knowledge, in case that should come up. But, so they have already met the requirement for those fixtures.
Okay, anything else for facilities? Budget and policy reports. That would be you, Lorraine.
Yeah, and you've got the minutes that Adrian wrote up. I guess the main thing is, we did talk about the model policies, and I guess according to Suzanne, they haven't really been reviewed and updated in quite some time.
Well, you look at the dates on some of them are like
Yeah.
2010.
So we are going to be taking a look at those, starting with the ones that are required. And, I mean, the money parts of it are there. And I guess also the one thing to kind of bring up is the fact that the auditors did mention what very lean budgets we have, and perhaps we should incorporate a little more into that.
Rather than relying on,
Contingency funds.
but rather than relying on surplus balances to fund some of our special accounts such as the BRF and the Health Reserve Fund. Yep.
So, I think those were the highlights that Dana gave us.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for budget policy? Community engagement report.
We have notes.
We didn't have an official meeting since the
Oh, that's
last.
right, there wasn't a quorum.
There was no official meeting.
Which does bring up a conversation that I might preempt you for a minute.
Sure.
That it's really, the committee work is really important. And if people sign up for a committee and then, you know, for one reason or another, life gets in the way and they can no longer serve on that committee or can't come, it would be really appreciated and helpful if anybody that finds themselves in that position would, you know, just shoot off an email saying, you know, life's in the way, I can't make these meetings anymore, so that we can find someone, because when you get to a meeting, I had one person on that committee that emailed me and said they were sick. I show up, I'm not really a member of the committee, I'm just kind of there. I'm a body. And so Christine is there all by herself. And so it was really hard for a committee of one from the board to, you know, have a meeting, so that there is, maybe I'm just old school and believe that if you're not going to make something, you should let somebody know. But I just ask that, you know, let people know on your committee if you're not going to be there. If you find that work is in the way and you can no longer meet that obligation, please let us know, and we can work to shift people around so that we can have these committees meet, because they're important and they're important to the students. So that's my plea. And now I'll shut up and let you talk about what you did.
The tricky part was we had Sue McCormick came to the meeting, so we kind of, I mean, normally we would have probably just not even said too much, but since she was there, we kind of had to proceed a little bit. So, but basically, we kind of made a plan over the next 2 months. We're gonna, she's coming back to our November 6th meeting.
Right.
And we kind of made a list of the next steps that we had to do as a committee from now until November 6th, which I could share those with you if you want to hear about them. But basically, our work coming up is to recruit the 8 to 12 steering committee members. And we set a date for that steering committee to meet, which will be December 4th. So from now until, you know, mid-November, we'll be working on recruiting the steering committee members. We talked about who those steering committee members, the makeup would be. So a total of 10, 2 people from either of these: advisory board, area business, or a community partner, 2 students, 2 parents, 2 board members, and 2 staff. And then we're supposed to review the survey and discuss guidelines and come up with some talking points to use in recruiting the steering committee. So that'll be our work at our November 6th meeting. And yeah, that's kind of about the sum of it at this point. We brainstormed a little bit about our marketing branding ideas for what we're going to call this work, I guess. Yeah, that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
All right.
Christina, so are you looking for 2 board members other than instead of your 2 committee members, or are you assuming that 2 of your 3 committee members would be those board members?
We're not making any assumptions at this point. I mean, I think it would be, anyone here is welcome to join that steering committee, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one of us. And Suzanne and I've got a pretty big workload with my other board hat on at the moment, so we talked about possibly sharing one of those board positions on the steering committee, so we would probably at the least want one other person from this board.
So you are hoping that perhaps other board members would step up?
Yes.
Yeah, and so there's, you have time to think about it. We're not going to strong arm anybody. I know some people have said that they were interested in it, but needed to, check out their own life schedules and,
And there is a
see what else they can put
timeline of
on.
the work on here, so you could review the timeline. A lot of the work is concentrated in the second half of the year, so after the holidays and everything, so. Yeah, so. Did I miss anything?
I don't think
No, that's
so.
pretty comprehensive.
Yep. Is there any other questions or comments or? Okay, superintendent's report.
You have it in your packet, I think you do, you should all have it.
We're 3 minutes behind Dana.
So I will be quick. The note to Fall Open House, I want to just once again thank everybody who helped make that be such a successful operation. And special thanks to Kate and to Chef Woody for their participation in providing guidance and the treats for the event. There were over 150 people. I had 140 there. It was a small turnout at North Campus, but still pushed us over the 150 mark, so that was good. The second thing that I want to mention is Eiley, who presented here. I mentioned her in here. She is going to be a speaker at the VSBA conference. There are 2 secondary school speakers. I don't know what school the other student represents, but Eiley is the second speaker, and they'll be speaking each for half hour on the 8th, Friday, November 8th. And she will be talking about her experience in CTE, and she'll probably be expanding on some of the work that she presented here this evening. So we're really proud that Eiley has been selected to do that, and that she's agreed to represent CTE and our center at this statewide conference. So kudos to Eiley. Let's see, evacuation drill, you can read that at your leisure. We did our first combined evac drill, not a fire drill, with Miller Union High School. I'd like to welcome Jill Heisinger as the new culinary assistant. I also put that in the report. Budget prep, you can look at that yourself. I identified 5 areas, 3 of which the auditors have encouraged us to look at, and that is for the Health Reserve Fund, budgeting $70,000 into the budget to actually to cover those expenses, because we now have a full year of data that shows what we're spending. And then at least a $25,000 transfer to the BERF. We'll be picking that up at the next facilities committee to get a recommendation about whether that's sufficient. We've been talking about that a little bit. And then a $25,000 coverage. Currently, we have a board contingency fund of $4,000, and they told us in no uncertain terms that is grossly insufficient to cover needs. So they're recommending about a $25,000 allocation for that. And then we have to budget for our construction technology. That was covered in other ways this year, partly through the Perkins grant, and so that will also be included in our general fund budget. And then Gibson has gotten a recommendation from colleagues about the transition, which will be occurring in January of there'll be a lead up to that in January of 2021 for the chart of accounts. So I don't know, Gibson, if you want to say a few words about that and whether there's a price tag you have to recommend at this point to the board in terms of what you might be budgeting for that.
Just to mention that there's school districts larger than ourselves that have
great capacity?
That have hired at least one individual to help out with the implementation of not only the new chart of accounts, but its implementation of the new financial system, statewide financial system, which is Power School e-finance. So that just takes some additional effort and manpower. I don't see that being the size that we are. I don't know that it would require us to take on full FTE extra, but maybe a half.
And are you looking for somebody to work half-time or part-time for several months leading up to this transition?
Right. I don't know that it would be necessarily a full-time position. But
So are you thinking half-time going forwards, or just like somebody half-time for like 5 or 6 months?
Well, I see it, I mean, this needs to be fleshed out.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not sure I'm quite there yet, but my initial thinking is that it would be a short-term position, not a full-time, to continue, more to help out with the implementation.
Okay.
So it'll be a part-time, I mean, not a part-time, but it would be a temporary position, not a permanent one. Okay.
Question. Is that for this current year we're in, or the next budgeted season?
It's for the next budget cycle.
Maybe we can bring that up in budget laws.
Sure. It would be 2021, January of 2021, so a year from this coming January.
Is when we would do the hiring.
It was when we would be on the hook for converting to the new system. So we have about 15 months lead time.
Kim?
Gibson, do you have any idea whether or not, for instance, something like that could be shared with Middlebury or any other districts in the area in the event they're going to have the same issues?
Well, so one issue there is, so Middlebury is now implementing their financial system now. I think they intend to go to full implementation starting this coming January.
Mm-hmm.
So the implementation is staggered, depending on what school. But that being said, we currently share similar software as Virgin's, and we are also on the same timeline as Virgin's. So potentially that may make sense to look at
do that.
synergies,
Sure.
See what their plan is, and maybe there's opportunities there for
Share,
cooperation.
a partnership with them in regards to the training and all that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Missy?
If there's schools going through this right now, does that mean there's experts in the field, if you will? Somebody that's gone through the process, knows the software, and therefore would be very effective in hiring?
That's a good question. I mean, the schools have started the implementation process starting this past January. So, and they met a lot of failure.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of problems with this implementation.
No one has completed it as of.
Well, I think that there's been more success, starting this summer, starting in July, on the back of these so-called failures. I think there's been more successful implementations of other. So I think people are starting to build some knowledge around this and developing some better and good ideas. I attend the Vermont School Business Officials meetings once a month, so I get some feedback on how the process is going. I've got a meeting this Friday. So yes, I think there is some people that are building up some knowledge around this.
Did I see hand down there.
Have you spoken to AC? The neighbors?
Well,
Brittany.
Are they alive or dead? or-
well, they're in the training process. They're implementing starting this coming in January. So they're in the middle, they're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
I mean, as a result of their implementation, there may be some opportunities for
Right.
For sharing
learning
knowledge.
from their
Learning, yes.
mistakes or what they did right.
Before we and Jen go into the soup.
Yeah, I mean, it was my
Christine?
understanding there were a lot of issues with the software itself. It wasn't just the implementation part, the software just had some big
Major
issues.
I'll speak to Brittany, see what she has to say.
You can tell her that Nick sent you. Are there any other, oh, Lorraine, sorry.
I was just curious about Eiley, like, did these students apply and then they were chosen? So,
They didn't have to apply. Vermont School Boards Association and Vermont Superintendents Association reached out to a number of superintendents around the state for interest. And when they got responses, then they reached out to those and selected those. So we were selected by the SBA.
okay, so you,
The center was selected.
and then you chose.
And then we had a nomination process with the faculty to bring us names back in August. And then we had a small committee, that leadership team that looked at the viability, and we were happy to select Highland.
And they weren't both CTE students
No, the other one is not a CTE student. The other student is from a general ed background.
Back to the culinary assistant appointment. Jill Heising is a graduate of Mount Abraham High School, and she's also a
She is.
graduate of this program.
She is.
But she's now going to be working for us. So
Right.
just a little, really
History.
lovely person and very talented.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We've now blown our time limit.
Sorry, I wasn't able to.
That's all right. Dean of Students.
Okay, I'll keep mine brief. Any questions? I do have.
Well, I didn't mean for you to be that brave.
I do have one point that Dana reminded me to bring up that I didn't put in the report, is that we're quickly approaching the end of quarter one, and that's October 25th. So for the board's information, we'll likely do our awards breakfast around the 13th and 14th. It's a Wednesday and Thursday of November. I need to just double check with Chef to make sure that we can make it happen from his point of view, but I will send out invitations. And unfortunately, because when the quarter ends, there's a few things such as outstanding student nominations. They come in like 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5 days afterwards. So I have to have enough lead time to be able to process those outstanding student invitations to parents before.
You set the date.
Yeah,
We
before we have
organize,
the
yeah.
date, so I've got to have enough buffer time. So anyway, keep that on your calendar. We love to have folks join us, and there's always an opportunity to RSVP to me, and sometimes it's really interesting. We get overflowing, we've got to bring in tables and chairs, and that's a good problem. And so, the more the merrier, so thank you.
So 2 dates, the 13th, which is a board meeting date actually, and the 14th.
Yep, so that's what I'm shooting for.
Great.
And that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
That was brief and sweet. Thank you.
Indeed.
Fine.
I'll piggyback on Kelly. There is also the invitation on the 21st of November. So getting out of calendars early from 5:30 to 7, there will be a Madison County Chamber of Commerce mixer at Hannaford Career Center, catered by the culinary program. And would love to have as many board members as possible.
What was that date again?
21st? Is that what you said?
21st of November.
Thursday. And this was actually, I think, set up about a year ago. They schedule out 12 to 18 months, so.
And we're scheduled out for like 2023 to host a legislative breakfast.
Oh.
They're even farther.
You didn't sign up for those?
So we hope to see at least a few of you for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Great. And we're going to do tours of the facility for guests who come, so.
I can just speak real quick into the current programs section of my report to the board. We have, I think, a really robust adult ed program going this semester. We have over 50 students in 7 classes, 3 of those classes leading to industry recognized credentials, and 2 of those classes are over 80 hours and include both classroom instruction and clinical components, both in the lab here and at Porter Medical Center. Those classes give participants the opportunity to really grow in their careers, earn better wages, and take on more responsibilities. We're also in our 4th and probably least successful cohort of Vermont Youth Works. We've been running over the first 3 cohorts. We had about a 83% completion rate, I believe, and we're looking at about a 20 to 30% completion rate on this cohort. So I think that we may be taking the spring semester off, not running a VT Youth Works cohort, and trying to convene some of the participant partners to figure out what makes sense moving forward with that program.
But it is safe to say, Len, that something did change in the makeup of the participants this year. Is that correct? That was different from before, without going into too many details.
You know, each cohort has had its kind of different personality, and that's both the challenge of running the program, and I think one of the reasons for its successes has been the fact that these students who have very different backgrounds but also share some of the same challenges and barriers come together and help each other and form a community and get a sense of value out of that community. So I think it's fair to say that we've had events that have sort of caused that community to unravel in this 4th cohort.
Okay.
I don't really know what those set of circumstances are, and I think that's part of why we need to kind of take a break and assess, to figure out what unraveled this time around.
Okay. Are there any questions for Len? Policy 4.1, governing style. Anybody want to take a stab at it? I will apologize to any board members that I misspoke to or did not recognize in a timely manner. So is there anybody who would like to take a stab at?
Sure.
Okay. You don't always have to do it. I think you did it the last time.
The last one.
Oh, okay.
I hardly ever do it. In fact, yeah, I don't usually volunteer. I thought it was, we're right on time, Suzanne. Exactly. A great presentation by the students. I'm so happy that we're doing those. Good discussion. Very good meeting.
Thank you. So we have 2 executive sessions online. So does anybody want to make a motion? We're doing the student records first.
Move that we go into executive session to discuss student records first and then negotiations second.
Second.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passed.